Hey guys, glad to stop by. So tonight for dessert, it took me forever to figure something out, and I actually didn't figure this one out. It was the lovely Miss Smith, Chris. She said to me, you gotta do something for Valentine's Day, and I was like, well, yeah, but Valentine's Day is next week. And she's like, yeah, but it's Wednesday, and your dessert video comes out on Thursday. Wouldn't it be nice to do something that is for, like, you know, a couple this week? That way maybe you could make it before Valentine's Day for whoever you would like to make it for. And I thought, it's a good idea. I still don't know what to do though. She goes, I'll look something up. And she found this really cool recipe that's in this case a heart-shaped brownie, which you could do this in any shape or no shape at all and just leave it in the 9x13 pan. But it has a strawberry mousse on top of it. So, and I thought, wow, that sounds good. A, I've never made a mousse. B, I've only ever had chocolate mousse. That's only been a couple times, I don't know, 30 years ago. And why not? Let's try it. You know, brownies are pretty straightforward, and I like brownies. Mousses, on the other hand, this seems a little straightforward, a little bit of work, but not really a little bit of work, more a little bit of weight. Kind of like a cheesecake. But sadly, it's going to be worth it in the long run. And today, we're going to make an attempt to do these in heart shape. So, that being said, if this is your first video, welcome to my channel. If you are returning or a new subscriber, welcome. I'm glad you stopped by. You know, I never take your guys' time for granted, and I hope you get something out of my videos and enjoy spending as much time with me as I do you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Those are always important. That keeps us out in the algorithm, keeps me relevant, keeps our neighborhood growing. It does all kinds of stuff. You know, that way we can keep promoting, you know, being a good neighbor through food, and conversation, things like that. And Lord knows the world needs a lot more home-cooked meals and good conversation. And in my opinion, probably a couple other things. But that being said, at least good food and conversation. Comments, always welcome. I respond to all of them if I can, for sure. They've slowed down a little bit, so it's been easier. Which I like to see that rolling, because like I said, all that puts us on the right algorithm. The only thing I ask is you be civil. It's okay to disagree. You can disagree with me. You can tell me that I was doing this all wrong. You can disagree with somebody down in the comments. Just think before you type, because if you don't, then we're not going to let you be part of the neighborhood. That's just the way it is. So, that being said, let's go ahead and get started on this. We're going to start with the brownies, and then we'll make the mousse, and then put it together and give it a try. But first we gotta get down to the counter to get started. I will give you all your measurements in cups, tablespoons, teaspoons, along with grams and millimeters. That way everybody can play along. All right, so enough talking. Let's hop on down here to the counter. Okay, so first thing we did was find a recipe. Got it right here beside me. Wrote it down like I always do in pencil. That way I can erase things, add things. If we don't like it, just rip it out and throw it away. Next thing I did was turn my oven on to make it 350 degrees. It is warming up as we speak. And then I took a 9x13 dish and I put some parchment paper in it and I sprayed it down, because we're going to take the brownies out of that. This part of the brownie, that part of the brownie is kind of weird for me, but we'll see how it goes at any rate. So I am using a stand mixer. If you are too, paddle attachment. Or you can just use a regular hand mixer. You could probably even do it with a spoon. We're just making brownies. You know, and brownies are pretty easy, pretty straightforward. But my hands are too tired to be using a spoon, and I'm not dragging out the hand mixer when I got a stand mixer that sits right behind me on the shelf. So, that being said, first thing we're going to put in here is 1 stick, half a cup, 114 grams of butter. And to that, we are going to add 1 cup, 200 grams of just regular old granulated sugar. Same stuff you probably put in your cereal or your coffee or your tea, depending on where you're at in the world. And then I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of salt. That's 2 grams. And I'm using kosher salt. If you don't have kosher salt, that's fine. There's no real law that says you have to use kosher salt. It just isn't as heavy in flavor and it does a really good job of bringing out the other flavors. So we're gonna go ahead and get this mixing. Your butter is room temperature, softened at least, but room temperature. And we're gonna run this until everything is light and fluffy. All right, we let that run until everything was light and fluffy, about 2-3 minutes. And we just want to make sure, I know it's only a couple ingredients, but we want to make sure everything's no butter chunks, anything like that. There shouldn't be, but, and I know for those of you who watched me bake before, or baked with me before, I should say, you know what light and fluffy is, but that is light and fluffy. It should be like mashed potato consistency, or at least look like mashed potatoes. So we went from, it's lighter in color, it's no longer yellow like the butter, and it looks like a cloud, and it has the consistency of mashed potatoes. So the next thing we're going to dump in here is a half a teaspoon, 2 grams of baking vanilla, or just vanilla extract. And we're going to do 2 eggs, but we're only going to do 1 at a time. So I'll go ahead and get that first one in there, like such. And then we'll get that incorporated, and I will put the second one in. All right, so we got our both our eggs in there and incorporated well, which means everything's mixed up really good. We're just gonna give this a quick scrape. Now, if you are newer to baking, you're gonna find everybody says scrape, scrape, scrape. And there's a reason for that. You really wanna make sure as you go that everything is mixed good. That way you don't have any clumps at the end, no surprises. And I've had that happen, where I just didn't quite do it enough, and I've gone to put a cake in a cake pan or a cheesecake in a springform pan, and then all of a sudden I've got this just abstract chunk of whatever ingredient stuck to the bottom where I didn't quite scrape it good enough. So you want to make sure you get a good scrape. That way you're not left, a little bamboozled there, or hornswoggled, or however you want to say it, at the end when you're trying to pour it in. All right, so the next thing we need to do, let me bring you down here just to actually just bring you out a little bit. Whoop, wrong way. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna throw our dry ingredients together real quick. And it won't take 2 seconds, it's only 2 items. So right here I've got 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour in a white bowl, so that way you can see it really well. And that's 90 grams, right? And then I've got 1/3 cup of, you want to use an unsweetened cocoa powder. I'm using Dutch processed. I like Dutch processed, it's my favorite. It seems to go well with everything, but just an unsweetened, cocoa powder works very well. So we're gonna take those two and we're gonna put them together real quick. So that way we can mix them together. Cocoa has a tendency to streak if you don't pre-mix it in with a dry good. And since we only really have 2 dry goods here, we'll just mix it with the flour right quick. Okay, so we are mixed, ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and pop that in there right quick. And scrape down the sides, so that way we get all that delicious cocoa out of there. Like such. There is that. And then we're gonna mix this till it's just incorporated. So just till everything is finally together. No, don't want to over mix. It can make your brownies a little on the tough side, rubbery side. So we're gonna start on low, because if you don't, you're gonna have a face full of cocoa and flour. And then I'll kick it up, and then as soon as it's just incorporated, we'll go ahead and stop it. All right, we have been mixing for a fine moment, about a minute, if even that. We just want to make sure, and like I said, we'll scrape anyhow, just to make sure we do have it all mixed up. Because this is the part that usually gets me, and then I don't think you can see it, but there was a little bit of cocoa powder hanging up at the top of the paddle, and there's some on the sides of the bowl and things like that. So we want to get this all taken off of there, like such. There's that. Give this a good scrape around. So we're pretty much done with the mixer. Now, the next step is to put chocolate chips in it. It says to fold them in, and you can. I'm going to this time, but a lot of times I just use the mixer and I just put it on low, or it has a stir setting. And if you do that, which is fine, you just want to do it until they're just folded in, you know, kind of hanging loose, because it's a lot of chocolate chips. It's a third a cup. No, I'm sorry, a half a cup of chocolate chips, or 80 grams that you're putting in there, and it doesn't take long to fold it. A lot of times when we made brownies, and most people when they make brownies, they don't even break out the stand mixer. But like I said, hands are kind of bothering me today. Yeah, although it's gorgeous outside. It's like 51 degrees. All right, we got that. I'm sorry, it's 57 as a matter of fact. Gonna be in the 60s tomorrow, and it's February in Ohio. It's wild. Ugh. Okay, so we got that there. Oven is heated. We got our pan right here. So what the recipe says is we're gonna take our batter, we're gonna put it in this 9x13, and we're gonna spread it out till it's about an inch thick, is what she's saying. Now, I mean, I suppose you could go a little thinner than that, a little thicker than that. I'm not sure, but 3/4 inch or 1 inch is what she calls for. And I couldn't even tell you exactly how many brownies and strawberry mousse hearts this is gonna make, because it's gonna vary on, you know, size, you know, especially with the hearts. You know, is it gonna be 3 inch or 4 inch? All right, let me get this separated or spread out, and then we'll move on with our conversation. Okay, so we've got our brownie batter in the pan. Now I took it down to about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch instead of an inch. As I got to thinking about it while I was spreading this out, that she was only doing, I think, 2, and I've got up to 6 I can make, because my heart mold for the mousse and my cookie cutter are smaller, but my heart mold holds 6, so I want to try to maximize that as much as I can. So the only thing I'm going to do different, hers, if you're doing 1 inch and only 2 per se, she called for 12 to 15 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and get this in the oven, and what I'm going to do is I am actually going to start out at 10 minutes, because I am only half the thickness that she was running, and I don't want my brownie to harden up or dry out. You know, I want it to be firm, so that way it'll hold the mousse on top of it, things like that, but I don't want it to dry out or crack. So I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll let you know for sure time when it comes out. I'm gonna guess 10 minutes, so off the top of my head that sounds about right. We'll be able to toothpick test it. Just stick a toothpick in it and pull it out, and it should come out with just a little bit of crumb on it, just like a cake, but not any like wet, nothing wet. So when I come back, we'll pull out of the oven and get started on our next part. Okay, so I got to think about, we really don't have to wait until these come out to start the next step, because this next step has to cook and then cool a little. So we're going to go ahead and start what is basically the strawberry filling that's going to go into the whipped topping that's going to create the mousse. So what I have here is I've got 2 cups of frozen strawberries. They're whole strawberries. You can buy half strawberries, cut up strawberries, frozen. You could even use fresh, I suppose, but the recipe called for frozen, so that's where we're headed with this today. And I'm going to put those in there, and the reason why I say you can use cut up ones, whole ones, doesn't matter, is because we're going to strain this through. And then I'm going to add, so I got 2 cups of strawberries, which is oh my goodness, where am I at? There we are. 314 grams. To that, I'm going to add a half a cup, 67 grams of all-purpose sugar, just regular old granulated sugar, right? And I am going to heat this up to on medium low, so about 2 to 3 on your, if your numbers are on there, and until the berries basically fall apart, you know, or start to disintegrate. While that's doing that, in this bowl I have a 1/4 cup, about 75 milliliters of cold water, and then I've got just this one little package of gelatin, just that plain old unflavored gelatin, and I'm not sure how many grams it is. If I had to guess, I'm gonna say right around 4. I will put it in the description down below along with the ingredients. And we're gonna throw that in there, in that cold water, and we're just gonna let this bloom. Yeah, so we're gonna let it, in a way, just turn to gelatin. And we're gonna let that sit for about 5-10 minutes. Okay, so we are to the point where our strawberries have fallen apart. See if I can get it up here so you can see it. See how we got lots of juice, not a whole lot of, well, not one whole strawberry. They're all just pretty much dying. So now that, dying, that's rude, but they're crushed, they're falling apart. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and turn our heat off. And that took about 10 minutes. The brownies had to go in for about another 8 minutes longer. So now we're gonna take our Jello. See, that looks just like that now. It's bloomed. It's basically become Jello, or gelatin. We're gonna put that in there with the heat off, but not off the burner, because we want that to stay warm. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix this gelatin up until it's completely dissolved in the strawberries. And then we got one more step before we let this cool. And it's actually a good step. It'll serve a couple purposes. And I think we are pretty much dissolved. Looking good. It won't take long because that gelatin doesn't play well with heat. It becomes a liquid again. So I've got a small bowl here, well, a medium bowl with a sieve, a screened in bowl. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. A sieve, S-I-E-V-E, a filter. And we're gonna take our strawberries and we're gonna pour that, run it through that. So it's like a strainer. And we're gonna strain this into the bowl and we're gonna press that down in because we wanna get all that juice out of there. And let's set that aside for a second, quick second. Let's check our brownies. They should be done. This will be the second time I've checked them. I'm trying not to over bake them, which I think we did a good job of. And all in all, they took close to 15 minutes. We'll go ahead and get our, yep, see, came out clean. Yay! That's what we're looking for. So what we're gonna do now is, and the reason why I got the parchment paper in there is because I want to be able to get it out easily in one piece, because we're going to do cutouts. So I got to let that sit for 30 minutes. Finish setting this, running this through our screen here, and then I'm going to let that sit and cool down to room temperature, and that'll take about 30 minutes. And then when I come back, we can move on to finishing up the mousse, cutting out some cutouts, and putting them in the freezer to chill. Okay, so we have got our brownies done. We have got our gelatin done to go in there. Our gelatin actually only took about 20 minutes to cool. It didn't take long at all, about as long as the brownies did. And I went ahead and did my cutouts for the brownies. And I made an executive decision, but there we are, 6 heart-shaped brownies. And I mean, you could do any cutout you'd like. And then you could even probably just leave it in the pan like it is, although I wouldn't recommend the 9x13, maybe an 8x8, and then just pour the mousse over top of it, and then stick it in the freezer as such. But, and there's our molds right there. 6 heart-shaped molds. My friend Kristen Brewer gave those to me a long while back. I just could not figure out what we were going to do with them. I'm so glad Chris came up with that idea. So now we had to make a whipped topping to add our strawberry gelatin to. To make our whipped topping, we need 1 cup of, let's, hold on. I'm sorry. 1/3 cup, 35 grams of powdered sugar, confectioner sugar, depending on where you're from. I have found it's called by like 8 different names depending. I have got 1 cup, 250 milliliters of heavy cream. Now, your heavy cream, you want it as cold as possible. So what I do is I put my mixing bowl, my my whisk attachment, and the heavy cream in the freezer for like 10 minutes before I bring it out to make this. And then I am going to throw a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar in there. Now you don't have to do this, it's kind of optional, but what this does is it acts like a stabilizer. It helps you to not over whip, because you can over whip whipped topping, and then it becomes weird. And if you're not going to use these like in the next day or so, it allows you, it gives you time to let them sit in the fridge before the whipped topping starts to break down. Although I'm sure the gelatin will help in that fact too, but I just want to make sure, and I don't want to over whip. It won't hurt anything to put it in there. Last thing I'm going to put in is a teaspoon of vanilla. And this is just a standard whipped topping. You can put this on top of cakes, pies, you know, anything that requires a whipped topping, basically. You know, this will work. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out on like a medium, and I'm going to work my way up to high, and then when I come back, I'll show you what stiff peaks should look like. Okay, so we have got our topping whipped, and that's important. So I'll show you real quick what I mean by stiff peaks. Get that smoothed out. Now, and we'll talk for a brief second about, I'm never really good at getting the whole but see how that's standing up? I am horrible about getting that whole perfect tip to come up on that. But that's what you're looking for, is that. Yeah, you want it to be able to stand up on its own. No flopping over, no, you know. If it flops over, that means you got medium to medium stiff peaks. You want stiff. So the next thing we gotta do is we're gonna take our syrup here, and we're gonna take a 1/4 cup, measuring cup, just like such, and we're gonna turn our mixer back on, or your hand mixer, although this would be a bit of a challenge. And we're just going to put this in a 1/4 cup at a time. I guess I could have put this in my 1 cup measuring cup, but that's all right. Until we've got a cup's worth in there, which is about a cup in here. Okay, we got that in there. We are in good shape. That looks good. Now, don't get nervous if it flattens down a little bit, loses some of its air. It's going to. You're adding a solid to a really light object, so to speak. Yeah, it's like when you make a cake and you fold in your egg whites. Yeah, and then we're just going to give this a scrape. Yeah, when you fold in your egg whites in a cake versus putting it all in at once, you have a tendency to lose some of your air in it, and that's okay. You know, it's okay if you do, but you don't want to try to lose all of it. I probably should have actually folded that in, but that's all right. That's all right. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay, so we've got that good and mixed. So the next thing we got to do, it's not the last thing, but it's the next thing, is I'm going to take that 1/4 cup measuring cup, and we are going to scoop this in to our mold. And we want to get it as even as possible. Well, in this case, I want to fill them up. All right, so I got our molds filled, and all I did was fill them up and then take my offset spatula and level them out. So the next thing we need to do is just take our brownies, and we're just going to place them over the top of the molds, like such. Hopefully they fit on there good. I have Sarah in the background. They do look cool, don't they? All right, so I've got my hearts on here, on top, right like that. And I've got it on I put it on a pan because that's a silicone mold and it's really hard to handle. It wants to flop everywhere. But well, what we got left to do now that we got that taken care of, sorry for the mess in the sink there, is put them in the freezer. I'm gonna put these in the freezer for about 4 hours to overnight. Now, overnight to me is 6 to 8 hours, but 4 hours minimum. So when I come back, we'll get them out of the freezer, get them out of the mold, and try one. All right, I will see you here in a second. So as you can see, it's well past the 4 hour mark. It's actually the next day. Got busy throughout the day. Ended up falling asleep, never even got them out of the freezer until this morning, but they turned out phenomenal. I went ahead and got them out of the mold. They came out pretty clean, which I was excited about. I've never popped anything from a mold before, so that was interesting, try to get 6 things out of one mold. But it worked, I think worked fairly well. Let's hop on down here to the counter and we'll take a look at them, all right? Real quick, hold on. Here is our fruits of our labor, so to speak. I think they turned out quite beautiful. Yeah, the molds aren't perfect. I could have probably put a spray on them. Didn't think about it until well after the fact. But all in all, I think they still say I love you in that heart-shaped sort of way. Yeah, and then of course, we got that one, and then here's the one we're gonna try. I think it just looks tender and delicious. Yeah. So, once you take these out of the freezer, you want to let them set for about 15-ish, 20-ish minutes to give them a chance to thaw a little bit. If not, it'll be like eating a solid brick of ice cream. Because they are, I found out getting them out of the mold, they are solid enough that they would be like an ice cube. But 10 to 15 minutes, and after that, I am going to be under the impression that you could probably refrigerate these in an airtight container because they'll hold their shape, or refreeze them, and they'll be good for a week. I don't think they'll last that long, but this is almost like a same day, next day type dessert. I could be completely wrong on that, but we're gonna find out when I get done because these other 5 are gonna go in the fridge in an airtight container. But I think they'll hold. Most mousses usually do, as long as you keep them cold. Chris said this is the first mousse she's ever heard of that you had to freeze, but that's what the recipe said, so that's what we did. But anyhow, let's give it a try and see where we're at. Oh no, I can't get into the brownie yet. That's all right, we'll try the mousse. I know what brownie tastes like. I'm really more excited about the mousse if I can get my fork out of the brownie. I didn't let it sit 15-20 minutes, but I'm here to tell you that that, my friends, was quite delightful. I love the taste of fresh strawberry, especially when it's in like ice cream, or in this case a mousse, or just period pies, cakes, fresh, just strawberries, and that tastes just like fresh strawberries. I mean, it's because we use fresh strawberries. It's not horribly sweet. The brownie complements it nicely, as it complements the brownie nicely. That really is a good brownie, especially with that second bite, since I actually got to have some of the brownie with it. I would, yeah, I recommend you give this a try. Not horribly hard to make, and now that we know it doesn't take long for the syrup to cool down once you make it. The brownies cool down rather quick because they're thin, and other than the minimum 4 hour wait time, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. Give this a try. You won't be disappointed. It's really good. It was a fun little project. Not hard, not as easy as the 4 ingredient cookies from last week, but by no means hard. And it'd be a lot of fun. Hands down. Who doesn't like brownies? Who doesn't like mousse? Or in this case, almost ice cream. Yeah. Give me a comment down below if you've made something like this before, or if you try it. Like I said, you won't be disappointed either way. So next week, I don't know what we're gonna do yet. I have an idea. I have a couple ideas for Wednesday's dinner. I still have a video out, although I'm gonna film it early because it's Valentine's Day and I gotta spend time with my sweet Valentines. I have 4 of them, you know. I have 3 girls and a wife. Obviously she's a girl too, but I'll be probably cooking dinner for them. Life has become rather interesting as of late. That's a story for another time though. So I'll be home cooking said gourmet meal for all my Valentines, and but I will have one for us for Valentine's. Dessert wise, I don't know yet either. I don't know. I never know. I really never know. I just know it'll probably be something good, maybe not healthy, but definitely filling and tasty, and we'll bring up conversation. So till next week for dinner, I love you. I love you very much, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Tell somebody else that you love them and love them very much. They may need to hear it. It's gonna make them feel good to hear it. It's gonna make you feel good to tell them, I guarantee it. And if you make them some of this strawberry mousse on top of a brownie, they're gonna know that you love them, especially on Valentine's Day. And you know, it's gonna lead to hours of conversation. And depending on who you share it with, might lead to a little smooching. You never know. So till next week for dinner, I'll see you then. All right? I love you. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.